So here we'll have the segment, and inside of this segment we'll have our content. So first of all, let's have h1, like add new book to your collection, and after that we'll have search book form. For now, we're not going to pass anything. We'll build in iteratively. So let's import a search from a forms search book form. Now let's go to forms and create search book form.js. That's going to be a class component. It's not our usual form. That's why I'm not using the my snippet for the form. So what this form will have? First of all, it's going to have query. By default, it's an empty string, and that's the only field that this form will have. Other thing is loading. By default, it's false. And the component itself is going to be the dropdown element. And this dropdown element actually can have loading state, which is pretty cool, and it will have options. And let's have a look. So options is just the array of objects. So the object will have key, it will have value, and it will have some text like first book. Okay, and let's create another one just so we can test it out. Okay, so this is how options looks like. Another thing that we'll have in our state here is books hash. So what we're gonna do? When user types, we will send request to our server. Our server will ping the Goodreads API and get back data from it. It will parse this data and feed it to us. And we get this data and we'll populate options and books. So this way, when user chooses the book, we do not need to make another request to the server. We already have this book here in this collection. So we'll take it from here and we pass it down to the form. So you will see how it works in a moment. Okay, so now this is the state that we have. So we'll need to have here the form. And inside of this form, we'll have drop-down field. So this is going to be the search field. Search. It's going to be fluid. Fluid just means that it will stretch to the whole parent segment that we have it. Let's add placeholder to be search for book by title. And then we'll have separate things. So the first one is the value, of course. So this state query is the value. And then two on change stuff. So we'll have on search change and the simple change. And on search change means that when user types something into the field. And on change is when the user selects something from the options. So here we'll have this on search change. Let's implement this. On search change equals, it takes event and data. So what do we want to do here? Basically, what I like to do, I like when user types and when user stops typing, we make the request. So we have some kind of, for example, 1 second after user stop typing, we make the request. So to do that, we'll have something like this. We'll have the timer like this timer. And in this timer, we'll store the timeout, JavaScript timeout data. And we're going to clear this every time user types. So we'll have clear timeout from this timer. After this, we're going to set state. So first of all, loading is, oh no, not loading, I'm sorry. So we're going to set state query to be to equal data, but yeah, to equal data. So that's gonna be the thing that user typed. So we save it into the state in query field, and after that we'll do this timer equals set timeout. The first argument is the method that we want to run after this timeout span. So it's going to be these fetch options, because that's what we want to do. After we stop typing, we want to fetch options for our drop down. And we're going to wait for 1 second. So now we need to add this fetch options. Okay, so here where we're going to make the request. For now, let's just make this set state. First of all, if not this state query, so if it's an empty string, we do not do anything. So we do not want to send request to the server when, for example, user clears the field. But after that, we'll do the request. But first, before we do that, we actually set the loading to true. And then we'll make the asynchronous request to the server in a moment. Okay, so we need to import form and dropdown from semantic-ui React. And segment in new book page. I forgot to import segment from semantic-ui React. Okay, so now we have add new book to a collection. Here is our dropdown. And as you can see right now, no results found. So, but when we type, we stopped, and again, nothing happens. Let's have a look what's going on. No errors whatsoever. Okay, so let's have a look what's going on. Oh, of course, options. I need to add these options to the Dropbox. Options, dropdown, this state, options. So now it's reloading, and when we select it, we have first book here. Good. So, and when we type something, and while I'm typing, nothing happens, but when I stop, 1 second pass, and again, nothing happens. Okay, where I screwed up this time. Set timeout, this fetch options. 1 second, fetch options. If this state, query data. Yeah, so again, I need to add loading state here. Loading equals this state loading. Let's reload and try it again one more time. That's how apps are developed, through trial and error. So while I'm typing, nothing happens. I stop 1 second, and you can see that we have loading state. So we can make here, we should do the request. Okay, so now we know how it works, so we do not need this option here. And we need to make the request. And here we could, again, dispatch thunk action, or we could be very lazy and make request right from the component itself. And we'll do this. I don't care. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to import access from access, and I'm going to make the request right here after I set state loading true. I just do access get request to the API books search. And I will change it to this interpolated string of S6, and I'm going to add query to be equal to this state query. So after that, I expect the response, and I'm going to response data that's going to be books. And after that, I will parse a little bit this books response. But first, before we do that, we'll go to the server and implement this mock API. So now here, if I type something, and if I go to the console here in network, we making the request to the search, as you can see here, search with the gibberish that I entered here. Good. So let's go to backend code. This is my backend code. Let's go to index.js, and here let's introduce another route, books, and we mount it into the books API. So now let's create books route.js. We define route, and inside of it we define get search. And here, we are not going to do anything in this session today. So in the next one, we need to implement authentication for this route firstly, and then we will implement the actual request to the Goodreads API. But right now, we will just mock it. And I have here in my Evernote, if I can access it. Okay, so here in Evernote, I have the data that I want to have. So it looks like response JSON, there's going to be books, and I'm going to paste it here. So that's what I want to have. So I will make the request to the Goodreads API, I will parse it, and in the end I will have something like this. So each book will have this data. It will have Goodreads ID, just for the reference. It will have title, it will have authors. We'll see what we're going to do with authors, but for now there's going to be just a string to keep things simple. But for covers, I will have the array of URLs to covers, to different covers. And we'll have the number of pages. Good? So right now we have two books that will be returned to us. So when it happens, we're going back to our React application. So when it happens, we have these books here. So now we can parse it. So we'll have another then, it takes books, and here what we're gonna do. First of all, we need to have options, and that's gonna be array. And second, we'll have books hash, and that's gonna be an object. And now we're gonna iterate books for each. We'll have book, and what we're gonna do. So first of all, we need to add this book to our hash. So we'll have books hash, and here we'll have book Goodreads ID. Goodreads ID. That's the ID because we do not have this book in our database. So it doesn't have any kind of ID in our database. We're gonna use Goodreads ID for these purposes, and that's gonna be book, just book. So this will form books hash. And another thing is options, and the options we're gonna just push another object with key of book Goodreads ID, with value book Goodreads ID, and with text to equal book.title. And after we've done this, we'll just set state. This set state will say that loading is false. We've done with loading. Options is options, and books are books hash. So what's wrong with this thing here? Never used. Okay, just something going on with my laptop right now. Okay, so now if I type anything and I stop, we'll make the request, but we have an error, I think. API search T, something on the couldn't proxy. So let's go to here, couldn't find proxy. Here we have an error. Oh, that's an error in my yeah, right here. Of course, no semicolons here. Okay, let's try it again. Let's reload the page. And let's type something. It doesn't matter what we type, but basically we have these two books, 94 and 3 Men in a Boat. Nice. So of course, in the real application, what we type here matters. Right now matters only when we type for these particular two things, two books that we have. So we're almost there. So now when user clicks here, we want to handle this event. So now nothing happens. So we click, nothing happens. So first of all, we want to populate this search, the query. And second of all, we want to take this book from the collection that we already have and pass it down to the form, book form that we will have here. Okay. So for that, we need to define another thing is on book select, for example, and we'll have book, and we'll do this set state book. So this way, we pass it down here on book select, this on book select. Now, search book form here, Now we need to define it. So we define a prop type on book select. That's going to be function. So we need to have prop types here. And now we can use it. So here in dropdown, we'll use on change equals this on change. Okay, so let's define it here. On change equals also event and data. And first we want to update our query. So we'll do this set state query equals data. And after that, we want to take the not just data, but data value. And after that, we want to, so this data value is the value in option here. And this is going to be the book, Goodreads ID of the book. So we want to this props on book select, and we want to provide the book itself that we selected, not just the ID of the book, but the book. And we store books in this hash. So we just do this state books, and we provide data value here, like this. So now in a new book page here, we'll check right here. We'll check that if, I'm typing if. So if we have this state book, then we'll have book form, and we pass to this book form, we'll pass submit. There's going to be this, let's say add book. And another one is going to be book itself, this state book. So now let's define add book. For now, there's going to be just, so we have something here, like, but we just console.log, hey, hi. So that's where we're going to dispatch new action and populate our Redux store. That's what we're going to do later. For now, we just have this dummy method. And of course, we need to have the book form. So let's import book form from forms book form. So let's create one, forms book form.js. That's going to be our form. So I'm going to use my snippet here. So it's book form, save, pretty good. So what do we have here? So first of all, here we have submit and book itself. And book itself is the shape that we defined in our, right here, right, in our backend. So I'm going to just copy this stuff from here. Going back here, and in a shape, I'll just paste it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that this is basically strings, most of them. Okay, so I'm going to delete this stuff from here. And this one is prop types number. So let's have a look. So Goodreads ID, I think it's going to be a string. Title string, author string, but cover is an array of strings. So I'm going to have here string. Okay. So now we define book that this form has. So in data, we also have the same thing. So I'm going to just copy it as well from here and pass it into data. But instead of this information, we'll have this props book, and then we'll just have Goodreads, title, authors, covers, and pages. But we do not want to have covers, because this is the data that we will post to our database, to our server, and we will store this data, this particular data in our database. We do not need to store all covers. We need only one cover for our book. So that means that we're going to have this here cover, and we'll take the first one. And covers themselves will be stored outside of the data structure. So we will have covers, this props covers. Okay. So now we have data, doesn't like covers, is missing in props validation. Yeah. covers is going to be an array of string. PTE string. And here I will have just the string itself, because that's not going to be a covers but a cover. So I'll change it to string, and we're going to remove it like this. So now it's valid. Okay, so we have the form. Still doesn't like covers. No, that's me. That's not correct. This is correct. Book covers array. Okay, now it's good. And we do not actually have this covers. That's my bad. Book covers. Oh man. I will not cut it out. I will not cut it out. You will see my pain here, like how stupid I am. Okay, so now we have data for our form. So now we just need to define this form. For validations, we'll do if not data title, errors title equals can't be blank. And we'll do the same thing for authors and the same thing for pages. And now we're ready to define these things. So what do we want to have? We want to have the two columns. In one column we'll have these fields, and another column will have the cover. So for that I'm going to use another segment around our form. And inside of the form we'll have grid. So we'll have grid, and this grid will end here. And this grid will have columns 2, so just 2 columns. So now after that we'll have grid row. Inside of this grid row we'll have grid column, the first one. And after that, this button as well gonna be in grid row, like this. And in grid column, we'll have basically 2 grid columns. So the first one will have these 3 fields. So let's do form field. The first one is title, so book title, it's text, placeholder title, what do you think? On change without any changes, so this is the first field. The second field is going to be the authors, so book authors, text as well, placeholder authors, on change. And the third one is going to be field pages, number of pages here, but there's going to be a number, no placeholder here. And on change, we're going to change this on change, because right now this on change handles only strings, but we need to on change number because we have numbers. So I'm going to copy this thing here, and I'm going to change it to change on change number. And I'm just gonna enclose it into parse int and add 10 to it. Okay, so this is the first column, and the second column, grid column, we're gonna have the cover, image cover. So we'll have image. We'll have the size small, and the source is going to be data cover. Okay, so now we need to have grid and image imported to here. So we'll have grid, segment, and image. Looking good. So what do we have here? So now I'm gonna, again, 3-man in boat. Okay, I have it. I have the form, but I do not have any kind of data here for some reason. Oh, I have. So I have it, actually, but we have very bad design. And that's Why I prefer to do it this way, so it's mobile friendly right off the box, not on the huge screen, you know. So yeah, we can see that this design is not good at all. So what we can do with it? So for that, let's add, for the grid, I think we need to add fluid, if it has it. I'm just improvising right now. And maybe, yeah, let's do it like this. And maybe stackable as well. Let's see. Doop, doop, doop. 3-man in the boat. Nope, doesn't help. Stackable. Oh, columns 2. Okay, that's embarrassing, right? Yes, nice. Okay, so we chose the book and we populated, so we show the form and we populated it with data. Nice. So if we make it larger, it will be like this. Good. So what we can do now? Now we have another problem here. So if we change it to another book, nothing happens. And that is because we initialize state right here when we create this component. But when we change state here, change the book, we pass the props are changed, but there is nothing here to change the state. The state is the same as it was. So for that, we're going to use component will receive props. So this method is called every time that the component receives props, and we make the next props for that. So this is the props that it receives, and we still have the ability to get these props, and that's going to be old props that will be replaced. So we can compare props to each other and have the logic in here, but we do not need to do it for this particular case. Here we just do this set state, and we set in that data is equals to the same thing as here, with one exception. We do not need to have this, and covers as well, actually, without this. So it's better to extract it to another method right here on the object and initialize state through the method. So let's have a look. We have this, and now we change it, and we have another book. Good. It works. So the last thing here that is left is to cycle through the covers. So we want to display this link or button only when we have more than one cover, and then we want to cycle through the covers if we have more than one, basically. So for that we need to have index, and we will just use this index to cycle through the collection. So first of all, here in our form, right below our image, let's add the condition. So if this state covers length, okay, I can use data, right, is more than 1, then we'll have link. So we'll have href, this thing, or we can use it like role button and tab index 0. And here we'll have the on click, and there's going to be this change cover, another cover, okay, something like this, I think. So if we go here, okay, data covers cannot read property length of undefined data covers. Oh, no, of course it's not in data. This state covers. Okay. That's late evening, but that's not an excuse, So here it is, another cover. So now when we click on it, we want to change the cover. So let's implement this method pretty quickly. It's going to be very simple. Change cover equals, and what we want to do. So first of all, we'll get index, current index, and covers from state, this state. So we do not have index right now, so let's add it to our state alongside covers here, index equals 0. So this is the same index that we use here. Now we need to calculate new index, so we'll have new index equals, so if index plus 1 is more or equal to covers length, then we set it to 0, otherwise we set it to index plus 1. And after this we set state, we'll have index, we set it to new index, and data cover. So we have data and we have this state data, and we overwrite cover with covers new index, like this. So let's have a look, test it out. Looking for the book, bam, change cover. Yeah, it works, nice. So let's go to another book, and we have error. Oh no, we do not have error. It just loads. Good. So what we done so far, so now in a dashboard we have this call to action. When we go to a new book, we have the search. When we start searching, we have the list of books. We can choose any book from the list. When we choose it, we auto-populate it. We can make some adjustments, for example, pages. Maybe you have another edition with other kind of pages, another number of pages, so you have the ebook. And then we can change cover, and then that's it. Then we need to have this save functionality. But we'll stop for today, and we'll continue with the backend stuff in the next episode. Okay, thank you very much. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends, and if you feel generous, go to my Patreon page and support this channel financially, and also get for this access to the private community where you can ask any kind of questions and discuss any kind of topic that you want. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.